This is Sky News at 10. I'm Yalda Hakim, live from the Saudi capital, Riyadh. Donald Trump is expected here within hours to begin the biggest diplomatic tour of his presidency so far. His visit to the Middle East boosted by a US brokered deal with Hamas to free an American-Israeli hostage in Gaza. 21-year-old soldier Idan Alexander reunited tonight with his family.
Also ahead on Sky News at 10 tonight, Sir Keir Starmer promises to cut net migration as he announces plans to tighten up the system. Counter-terror police lead an investigation into a fire at a home belonging to the Prime Minister. Plus 6 Bulgarians who spied for Russia from a guest house on England's east coast are jailed. And hip-hop star Diddy goes on trial in New York over sex trafficking claims. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight.
Good evening from Riyadh, where President Trump is due to arrive in the coming hours as he continues an extraordinary week of US diplomacy. The global influence of the man who says he runs not just the United States, but the world is being keenly felt. Before he stepped aboard Air Force One, there was a trade deal to slash tariffs with China. Then a suggestion that he will personally broker talks between Presidents Putin and Zelensky over the war in Ukraine. Next came offers of trade deals for India and Pakistan after a US negotiated end to their nuclear standoff. And then, as Mr. Trump set off confirmation that Hamas had freed an Israeli-American hostage in a deal arranged by his administration. First tonight, Sky's Alistair Bunkle examines if the US president's influence could kickstart ceasefire talks in Gaza.
584 days after he was taken hostage on October the 7th, Idan Alexander, a dual US-Israeli national, was released from Gaza. The 19-year-old, who was serving as an IDF soldier, was then taken to the Israeli border to be reunited with his family. Hamas said that they agreed to the release as an act of goodwill towards Donald Trump. They got nothing in return. Donald Trump, whose team brokered the release,
it's a big day,
celebrated his freedom.
And he's coming home to his parents, which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news.
Idan Alexander's family, who had gathered in Israel for his release, called for the remaining hostages to be freed.
Thank from my bottom of my heart that they bring Idan home, bring Idan back to us, and now there is 58 hostage that we need to bring them back all together immediately.
There is hope in Israel that this deal will lead to the release of the remaining 58 hostages, but also anger that President Trump has done what Benjamin Netanyahu hasn't.
I promise you, Netanyahu, if you don't end the war now and my child is murdered because of you while he's in captivity, I will haunt you until your last day, and I will not be alone.
And as Benjamin Netanyahu entered court in Tel Aviv for another day of his trial, he was confronted. Nimrod Cohen is the same age as Idan Alexander and was taken by Hamas from the same military base on October the 7th. He remains in Gaza, and his father says Netanyahu is to blame for his son's fate.
It was never a priority for Netanyahu to release hostages. His only priority is to keep his position as prime minister, to keep himself free from prison.
But Netanyahu welcomed Idan Alexander's release and said Israeli action had pressured Hamas to do the deal. 17 people were killed, according to the Gaza Ministry of Health, in a strike on a school in northern Gaza earlier today. Women and children were again amongst the dead. The Americans are pushing a plan to restart humanitarian aid deliveries into Gaza. But there is hope that the release of Eden Alexander could persuade Trump to push Israel and Hamas to accept a new ceasefire deal too. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
Well, President Trump was keen today to highlight his influence not just in Gaza, but also in bringing about a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. He said the offer of US trade deals had focused minds and that negotiations were already underway. Sky's Cordelia Lynch has been speaking to Pakistan's information minister about the scale of the US president's involvement. Have a listen.
What sparked that truce and who began the conversation?
I think different countries were speaking to both India and Pakistan, and obviously they were conveying their concern over the whole situation, and they were gravely concerned for the safety and security of the entire region. So I think a lot of countries played their part, and obviously, as the Prime Minister has already expressed gratitude to President Donald Trump, who played a pivotal role in the ceasefire, and besides that, he has also thanked the Chinese leadership. They played their own role over the whole situation, and the Saudi leadership, the UAE leadership, the Turkish leadership, the Qatari leadership.
What, if anything, was agreed upon as part of this ceasefire? Was Kashmir on the table? Have you made a commitment for you and India to discuss that?
I think President Donald Trump's second tweet has made things abundantly clear, because he wants a resolution to major issues between us, between India and Pakistan. And he has specifically mentioned Kashmir, that he would like to settle.
So is Kashmir now on the agenda as part of this ceasefire deal?
The US president made it abundantly clear that he would like to resolve issues, including Kashmir. So let's see how things unfold in the near future.
Cordelia there with Pakistan's information minister. Well, Cordelia Lynch was speaking from Islamabad, and we've also been hearing from India's leader today, and as Cordelia now explains, they seem less enthused about Donald Trump's influence. Have a listen.
For the first time since intense clashes between India and Pakistan, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has addressed the nation. Whilst Pakistan has been sounding pretty loud and pretty triumphant, Modi's been a lot more muted. There's a lot of speculation of him being under intense domestic pressure to sound and to look tougher on Pakistan. Also talk of him being frustrated with Donald Trump being the first to announce a ceasefire, and also dangling this idea that there would be talks on Kashmir as part of this deal. That has been something India's always maintained would be decided between India and Pakistan and not a third party. He also made very clear in his speech that terrorism was his main concern, and if there was another terror attack, he would act forcefully.
We have just suspended our retaliatory action against Pakistan's terror and military camps. In the coming days, we will measure every step of Pakistan on the criterion that what sort of attitude Pakistan will adopt ahead. If there is a terrorist attack on India, a fitting reply will be given. We will give a befitting response on our terms only. We will take strict action at every place from where the roots of terrorism emerge. This is certainly not the era of war, but this is also not the era of terrorism. Zero tolerance against terrorism is the guarantee for a better world.
I think what was pretty clear from his address is that any idea that there would be a broad set of issues that the two parties would come together to discuss doesn't look like it's going to happen. Nevertheless, Donald Trump, as he left the White House, was sounding very upbeat, saying he had avoided a bad nuclear war, as if there would be a good one. But also, very interesting that he said trade was a big part of the negotiation, suggesting that that is what brought the two parties together to agree on this truce.
Cordelia Lynch reporting there. So are we seeing Donald Trump's much boasted art of the deal coming to fruition on the international stage? Well, with me here is our correspondent, Mark Stone. Mark, good to see you. As I said, you're usually in DC. You're here with us in Riyadh to cover this trip. And really, it is 8 years to the day since Donald Trump made his first diplomatic tour to this country when he was president the first time round.
Yeah, he chose Saudi Arabia first last time, and he's choosing it again this time. And there are two constants. He's back, and Mohammed bin Salman obviously is still the crown prince. But both those leaders have changed. They are both much, much more powerful. They're both much more confident. And I think it's also the case that this time around, the relationship is a bit more balanced. Trump needs the Saudis, needs the Gulf Arabs, maybe not quite as much as they need him, but it's more balanced, right? And I think that on the face of it, a lot of this over the next few days is going to be about money. Of course it is. It's Donald Trump. It's going to be about deals. There's this talk of $1 trillion worth of investment, Saudi investment into the United States. When people across the US wonder, his base, wonder why he's come to this faraway land that they have no affiliation with, that's the answer. He'll tell them the Saudis are going to invest in our country. But now, because the Saudis are much more powerful, because they've proved themselves to be regional power brokers, maybe even global power brokers on issues like Ukraine, Russia, like the Middle East, and indeed maybe too on India, Pakistan, they've proved themselves to be more powerful. And so they've got some leverage there with Donald Trump. So I think underneath the money that will be talked about over the coming days, there will be deals. It will be all about commerce and trade, yes, of course. But all of that is wrapped up in geopolitics. And goodness me, in just that flight that we took to get here yesterday, so much happened, didn't it? Donald Trump's riding an awful lot of horses at the moment. He's bound to fall off one of them, but he's careering ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, thank you so much. And as we said, we'll be following all the twists and turns over the coming days. We'll be here in Riyadh for the next 24 hours and then moving on to Qatar, and who knows where we could end up by the end of the week. But for now, Anna, back to you in the studio.
Yalda, thank you. We're back here now, and the Prime Minister has promised to bring down net migration by the end of this Parliament in an overhaul of the immigration system. Sir Keir Starmer said that without major reform, the UK risks becoming what he called an island of strangers, prompting an outcry from campaigners over his use of language. The government's promise to take back control of the country's borders comes amid a surge in support for Reform UK, as our Deputy Political Editor Sam Coates reports.
Staffing care homes, helping the NHS, supporting our food sector. How many people should this country let through the gates to help these industries survive? That's the question the PM wants to address.
We will create a migration system that is controlled, selective and fair.
The numbers coming here quadrupled in just 4 years. Now, he says, they must be cut.
Today, this Labour government is shutting down the lab. The experiment is over. We will deliver what you've asked for time and again, and we will take back control of our borders. Now, make no mistake, this plan means migration will fall. That's a promise.
Eye-watering language from a Labour leader designed to cause controversy.
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, you're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart.
A tough new plan to tighten the rules means a ban on new care workers from overseas, allowing skilled workers only with degrees to enter, raising English language requirements, making new arrivals wait 10 years for permanent settlement, and plans to clarify the use of family rights to avoid removal. Substantial proposals from the Prime Minister today, but we have had big plans to clamp down on migration from PMs in the past. The big thing seems to be Keir Starmer saying that he acknowledges that the link between growth and migration is broken. But has he really changed the culture inside government? Opposition leaders desperate to say that this isn't going to result in change, but could they do any better? The Tories say that Keir Starmer's imitating their plans.
Many of the things he was announcing are things that they are voting against right now. We brought in salary thresholds when we were in government just before the election. The first thing Keir Starmer did in coming in was scrap them. So now he's saying that he's going to have a white paper to look at the same proposals he just scrapped later. Labour are taking us for fools.
But can the party that claim they set the agenda explain how they do it?
I want to understand how you would deal with legal migration, because I'm just looking through your manifesto. I've just got some of the questions that just flow from Reform UK's proposal. Because one of your big proposals in the election campaign was a freeze on non-essential immigration. But you do say that there is an exception, which is essential skills. That feels like quite a big caveat.
We con ourselves that the NHS can't operate without foreign doctors and nurses, completely turning a blind eye to the fact that 7.2 million foreign-born people have registered with GPs in the last 11 years.
Will you put a cap on the number of people who can come in under your essential skills exemption, particularly in healthcare, for people who come in the country?
By the time of the next election, we will. I can't tell you the numbers right now. I don't have all the figures. But what I can tell you is anyone that comes in will not be allowed to stay long-term. That's the difference.
So you are committing to a cap on the numbers of people?
You ask me in 4 years' time, all right? Ask me in 4 years' time. You can play whatever silly games you want right now. The fact is, there is nothing that has been said today that I think is genuinely going to be followed through with vigour and lead to levels of immigration going back to historic levels of net 30,000 a year.
9 years after the migration debate shaped the Brexit outcome, is the debate any closer to ending? Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, for many people who arrived in the UK through legal means, today's announcements mean an uncertain future. There's uncertainty too for the migrants yet to travel here, with some of those legal routes now set to be changed or abolished altogether. Our communities correspondent Lisa Holland has more.
The Prime Minister's pledge to make it harder to migrate to Britain has sent shockwaves through those already in the immigration system. We met Ali at a support group for LGBT asylum seekers. Ali is from Pakistan and came on a student visa. 3 months later, he claimed asylum.
My family, they are forcing me to come back to Pakistan and marry a girl, but I can't do this.
The Prime Minister wants to crack down on people like you. Some people would say you abused the system. You came on a student visa and 3 months later claimed asylum.
We are not abusing. Actually, we are fighting for our rights, you know.
The government's pledge to reduce net migration involves overhauling a myriad of legal migration routes. It's 2 years since we first revealed the massive abuse of the skilled worker visa system, with criminal gangs being paid huge sums of money by individuals to use the route to get them to the UK, or for others, they got here to find the jobs they were promised didn't exist. Now, the Home Office has admitted it's had to shut down hundreds of rogue sponsors, and it says there are at least 40,000 people who've come forward to say the jobs they were promised never materialised. The real figure could be much higher. Yemixa from Nigeria is one of those tens of thousands of people who came to work as a carer. There was no job. The government is now closing down that route.
I can't even go back to my country because everything, all my property has been sold. For me to come here, for me to relocate down from my country, Nigeria.
Is the system in a mess, do you think?
Yes.
Vasuki Murahathas is an immigration lawyer. Around half of her cases are people who arrived on legal visas now trying to make asylum claims. She says whatever the government does, people are desperate to get to Britain. So will they still find a way?
They will find a way. There are agents who will assist them to come to UK in a different route.
The government has made bold promises, but closing loopholes and deciphering those with genuine needs will take time. Lisa Holland, Sky News, East London.
Counter-terrorism officers are leading an investigation into a fire at a home owned by the Prime Minister in North London. Police say damage was caused to the property's entrance in the early hours of the morning, but no one was hurt. Well, let's go live then to North London and speak to our correspondent, Matthew Thompson. So counter-terror officers are involved, Matthew. What more do we know about this?
They are, and in fact, in the last few minutes, we have a bit of breaking news around it. The counter-terror police now said that they're investigating 2 other incidents and whether they may be in some way connected to the fire here at a house owned by Keir Starmer. They say they're investigating a car fire in northwest London on the 8th of May and also a fire at another property here elsewhere here in North London yesterday, and working out whether in some way these 3 fires, may be connected. Now, what we know in relation to the fire at Keir Starmer's former home is that it was started possibly deliberately. Police say that they are treating it as suspicious. In the early hours of this morning, the fire brigade say they were called just before 1:15 in the morning, and that they had the fire under control about 15 minutes later than that. Police say that there was some damage to the property, to its entrance, but that nobody was hurt. And there have been forensics officers combing the street all day. In fact, they're still searching the drains and the bins around us as we've been stood here. You can see there's still a police cordon in place. We've heard briefly from 10 Downing Street. The Prime Minister's official spokesperson said in a statement, "I can only say that the Prime Minister thanks the emergency services for their work, and it's subject to a live investigation, so I can't comment any further." Now, of course, Keir Starmer and his family don't live here anymore. They moved into 10 Downing Street when he became Prime Minister, but it is understood that the family still own the property and that they now rent it out. And it has indeed been the subject of protests in the past. Just last year, 3 people were given sentenced for public order offences for a Palestine-related protest outside the property. But the question that counter-terror police are now wrestling with is whether this may be something more sinister altogether.
Matthew, with that update, thank you. 6 Bulgarian members of a Russian spy ring run from a guest house in Great Yarmouth have been jailed for a total of more than 50 years. The group ran espionage operations across Europe, carrying out surveillance for the Kremlin, targeting journalists, dissidents and Ukrainian troops. Rachel Venables has the story.
No James Bond activity on my end, I guarantee you.
Not 007, but a ringleader of Bulgarian spies working for Russia. A group that Orlin Rusev called his minions.
I will be thrilled to see how on God's earth there is a connection between me and Russia or any other state, because I haven't been a spy or a government agency employed for a state or states.
He ran things from an old seaside hotel in Great Yarmouth, Norfolk.
Police, stay there! Stay there!
Inside, police found a huge collection of spy equipment.
I have purchased some on the eBay and I'm repairing many of those.
From sophisticated communications interception devices to a hoard of fake identity documents. There were also covert cameras and spy glasses, all used in a series of surveillance and intelligence operations across Europe for Russia, which targeted investigative journalists, politicians and military sites. The group even discussed kidnapping and murder. On Monday, they were jailed for a combined total of more than 50 years.
The defendants were motivated by money. For example, on the 23rd of February 2022, Mr. Marsalek messaged Mr. Rusev that he was applying for €1 million for search and capture budget for Kirill.
Rusev got the longest sentence of 10 years and 8 months.
The risk of harm to individuals was very obvious and very serious, and your purposes were prejudicial to this nation's safety and interests.
The operation was understood to have been directed by alleged Russian agent Jan Marsalek, an Austrian national wanted by Interpol. His whereabouts are currently unknown. They've been described as one of the largest and most complex enemy operations uncovered on UK soil, endangering lives and harming national security. A reminder of the continuing and complex risk from Russia. Rachel Venables, Sky News.
The sex trafficking trial of hip-hop star Sean Diddy Combs has begun in New York, with prosecutors accusing him of forcing women to join drug and sex parties and later blackmailing them. In response, his defence conceded that the three-time Grammy winner had violent outbursts, but said his party-loving lifestyle was indulgent but not illegal. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner reports now from the court in New York, and a warning, there is some distressing content.
Janice Combs watched her son build a music empire.
How are you feeling today, Mum? How is your son?
Now she's in court hearing allegations that he used that business to force women into sex, to beat them and to cover it up.
How is your dad feeling, sir? How's your father?
His sons Justin and King are there too, and 17-year-old twin daughters Delilah Starr and Jessie James.
Have you spoken to your dad today? Have you spoken to your dad?
Seems like yesterday we used to rock the show.
For decades, the music industry reverberated around Sean P. Diddy Combs.
The key to the city!
Less than 2 years ago, receiving the key to New York City, fans packing the streets. Now, people queuing overnight to see him in court.
How is Mr. Combs feeling?
Upbeat. I think, obviously this is a huge deal, and so he's just ready to have his side told.
The case against Combs is extensive. In her opening statement, prosecutor Emily Johnson said, to the public he was a business icon, larger than life. But there was another side to him, another side that ran a criminal enterprise. He made women have sex when they didn't want to. He drugged them and threatened them. He sometimes called himself the king and expected to be treated like one. Their star witness will be Cassie Ventura. The pop star was in a relationship with Combs for 11 years. The jury was shown this video of him appearing to drag her down a hotel corridor. They heard that Combs forced Cassie to partake in sex parties he called freak-offs. Sean Combs now has grey hair and a grey beard. He's already been in prison for 7 months. He listened intently as the prosecution painted a picture of a monster. He also blew kisses to his family in the public gallery. They may never see him as a free man again. His defence lawyer, Tenny Garagos, said this case is about Sean Combs' private, personal sex life. The government has no place in his private bedrooms. It will show you a flawed individual, but not a racketeer or a sex trafficker. Combs denies all the charges. If convicted, he faces a possible life sentence. High stakes and high profile. Martha Kellner, Sky News, New York.
The Prisons Minister has told Sky News that the government would consider the introduction of American-style supermax jails in the UK to tackle rising violence. Lord Timpson was speaking to Sky's Sophie Ridge, who has spent the day at Preston Jail and sent this report.
The government is clear. Last summer, the prison system was dangerously close to collapse. The summer riots led to more than 1,280 arrests. The prison estate simply couldn't handle the load. Now an independent review is looking at how sentencing needs to change to stop that happening again.
There was a basic failure, which is a failure to have enough prison places for the number of prisoners that were being sentenced to prison. That is about as basic a failure of government from the previous government as you could possibly have got.
For Keir Starmer, the former chief prosecutor, this is personal. He walked into a justice system in chaos. One of his first acts was to let prisoners out of jails that were full. And now the real question is, can this government succeed where others have failed? The polling shows the public still blame the previous Conservative administration for the issues in jails. But if Labour don't get a grip of some of these issues, and quickly, then it will become their problem.
Prison overcrowding is not a new thing. It's been around for a long time. But for us, we look after 680 prisoners, or up to 680 prisoners every day, and we're predominantly full. So that does bring challenges for us.
It's rough. This is a rough environment. It's frustrating to see, and you feel bad for the prisoners because they're getting out with sort of nothing.
Something needs to be done. You know, we are overstretched, under-resourced.
We're all here. We've all made a bad choice. It's about the choices that we make now that define us.
Here in Preston, you really get a sense for the issues that, frankly, are facing the entire prison system, from overcrowding to reoffending. And I tried to put some of what the officers and the prisoners told me to the man who can do something about it.
The reason why we need to build more prisons is because people are reoffending again and again and again. People are leaving places like HMP Preston here, addicted to drugs, nowhere to live, mental health problems, and that's why they keep coming back, and that's why we have more victims. So if we want to keep the public safe, we need to do a lot more of the work in here and in the community, but also we need to build more prisons.
There has been this idea of like supermax prisons for the most dangerous offenders.
We inherited a complete mess in the prison system. Violence is up, assaults on staff is up, and our staff do an amazing job. They're the people that run towards danger rather than back away. And we're dealing with some of the most complex people in the country in a system which is, as you've seen today, really complex. But for me, we shouldn't rule anything out. What we need to do is to speak to our staff. They're the experts at dealing with these offenders day in, day out.
The coming review is going to pose some difficult questions, and there are no easy answers. Sophie Ridge, Sky News, Preston Prison.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the political editors of The Sun and The Guardian, Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Among the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front of The Telegraph about the fire at the Prime Minister's North London home. The headline, as you can see, terror probe into arson at PM's home. In fact, 3 fires, we now understand. Back with that in just a moment.